This video contains some surprising details about Doom the Dark Ages balance, particularly in the case of how melee charges are obtained in combat. If you want to skip right to it, here's the timecode, otherwise you can stay for the introduction. Thanks. Balance is always an interesting thing to discuss in video games. Typically it's for multiplayer, but when a game has a large focus on a single-player experience that's designed to be replayed and mastered, people care about the balance of that too. The modern Doom games, mostly starting with Doom Eternal, have seen many updates that tweak the balance of weapons, enemies, and resource values to create a more engaging campaign, one that better encourages mastery, and one that better shows new players what the game is all about. It's not just about the high-level side of balance, it's also about getting new people into the fun zone smoothly. With Doom the Dark Ages, there's way more balance talk in the Doom scene than ever before. Because Doom Eternal fostered a dedicated community focused on high skill ceiling play and maximum weapon variety, some fans were a bit taken aback by the Dark Ages' new direction, that this time there was more focus on a single gun or a couple guns, while finding how they're used with all your different shield options and upgrades, and essentially finding build synergy. I think some of the discussion around weapon balance is misguided, coming from a misunderstanding of what the game is going for, but that doesn't mean the balance is perfect. I gave the overall game balance a B- myself in my official review back in May. Since then, we've seen changes to combat encounters, changes to demons, and changes to weapons, with the main community criticism on balance being that it's just too easy to pick one gun and use it for most, if not all, the game. I think some balance tweaking is welcome, though the fundamental design of the game isn't going to change from one based on picking a gun that complements your build and style. The Super Shotgun now doesn't one-shot Hell Knights, it instead falters them by taking off an arm, which sets them up for a melee into execution, or a second shot. The Ravager got a nerf after seeing how easy it was to destroy bosses with it, though it's still very strong. I'm gonna give my thoughts on how I think some weapons could be balanced going forward, but I want to approach things with a bit of caution, mostly because I come from fighting games and I've seen what early knee-jerk balance changes can do to a game long term. But first, I want to start with something that I do feel pretty strongly about, and that's the melee recharging system. Get ready for a pretty detailed breakdown of this before we get to anything else. Gauntlets and Dread Mace are absolutely insane. Dread Mace obviously for the power, for the falter, and the full ammo refill. But what really makes it crazy is how easy it is to recharge. This goes for the gauntlets too. Even though you may only have 3 charges ready and going up against a super heavy, you'll find yourself getting off 5 or 6 melee strikes. How is that happening? It's because the melee recharge system is quite off balance and doesn't work the way the game's explanation leads you to believe. It says that parries will speed up your melee recharge, but what's actually happening is that a parry will straight up give you melee ammo drops. If you slow the game down, you can see 2 little melee drops flying out of the enemy after each parry. How many of you noticed this? It's pretty much impossible to see if you don't go frame by frame. These drops give you 2 charges for the gauntlets, and 1 comes out for the flail. The game is not giving you a temporary boost to your recharge time like you would expect from reading the tutorial. It's giving you these drops. The gauntlets actually say that they give you a full charge from a parry in the default description if you read it in the menu, which is different from what the tutorial says. Initially, gauntlets only grant 1 charge from a parry, like the flail, but just the second upgrade of the gauntlets unlocks the second melee drop from parries, giving you 2 full charges every time, which is what leads the gauntlets to be kinda broken, and you can get off a series of 8 melee strikes on a cyber demon by just parrying him twice. I think if we're gonna try to make melee less ridiculous, specifically talking about the gauntlets, these melee drops should only be refilling a portion of a charge, not the entire thing, and certainly not 2. This is how the Dread Mace works, where parrying a melee attack will drop a melee charge that fills you up 1/4, which is still too much for the Dread Mace in my opinion, and once you unlock the second charge, you can get it with a single parry. I don't think it should be like that, I think you should just be able to build towards another charge. Okay, that's enough about melee. I think it needs some kind of rework. Anyone who's playing the game a bunch knows how strong this stuff is, and it's largely because of how crazy the recharge system is. Will it get a rework? Who knows? Will I stop enjoying the game if they don't adjust it? No. But I wanted to explain what's actually going on here because I haven't seen anyone else break it down, or even notice these quick melee ammo drops after parries. They are quite fast. I will also add that something contributing to the Dread Mace's ridiculousness is that sometimes you'll do an execution, and if that execution involves the Dread Mace, it triggers the ammo refill that you're only supposed to get when you intentionally use the Dread Mace as a swing. So, as powerful options get toned down, we have to keep in mind that there will always be a top dog. Ravager was being used for bosses before the nerf, and now everyone is saying Accelerator's the go-to boss weapon. Okay, well if you nerf that, then what's next? The Impaler, I imagine. I'm not saying they shouldn't go down this road. Better balance does make the game a more thoughtful experience if they get it right. I love what they did with the SSG and the Hell Knight, and I think the Impaler's day is coming because it's just so powerful in essentially every application. And since the final upgrade grants a melee drop, the recharge effect on Dread Mace is wild. We also know the rocket launcher and chain shot are supposed to have their ammo counts brought down. There's all kinds of tweaks coming, and the game will be supported for a year at least, so there's room to change things and change them back if needed. It's going to be interesting. Let's not freak out too badly if something doesn't work the way it's intended right away. It's easy to look at the stuff that's too powerful and easy to use and say, that needs to come down, but a lot more nuance is needed for discussions about buffing weapons that seem underpowered. The two weapons that come to mind are the Pulverizer and the grenade launcher. I hear very often that these two weapons aren't very good, and I think these are dangerous weapons to buff. The grenade launcher in particular. The question is always, how is the grenade launcher better than rockets? And that question misses the point. They aren't supposed to be directly compared because they shine in different scenarios. They can be used in the same way, just like rockets, grenades can be upgraded to do a lot of splash damage, but what stands out to me about this weapon is how it allows a runaway playstyle, holding down one position, turtling as we call it in fighting games. You can't tell me it's not a powerful option to be able to fire grenades in the air from behind cover and delete a helpless cyber demon like this. You can't tell me there aren't great ways to hide behind a corner and bounce grenades off walls. There are a lot of situations where you can spam grenades with no idea where the enemy is, and the grenades will do the job for you in a way that rockets simply can't. Do we really want to buff a weapon that uniquely allows you to run and hide in a game whose motto is stand and fight? I don't think so. At least, not in the early months. We can revisit it later. But a small buff can fundamentally change a weapon's place in the tier list. And with the Pulverizer, I understand why this weapon isn't used much outside of the cool factor. The damage is kinda low, there are better ways to take out large groups of fodder. You gotta run around with it, which can get you killed since so much is happening in this game. But it does have some great applications. The widespread makes it an incredible option against pinkies after a shield toss. It just melts them. I use it a lot in levels 4 and 5. And let's not forget about the speed boost. This has to be the most underrated upgrade in the game. I'm not a speedrunner, but when I see this, I know there just has to be a lot of good applications for it. If you can memorize exactly where to pull out the Pulverizer for certain kills, you can start and maintain huge speed increases across the map. And I don't know how many people know this, but you can actually switch away from the Pulverizer during the speed boost, use another weapon, and then switch back to it and maintain the speed boost easily by meleeing someone. Again, do we really want to buff this weapon just because its power requires mastery and high map knowledge? I think people tend to see these things in a vacuum. When a weapon doesn't do specifically what they want it to do, they cross their arms and say it sucks. The Flail is a good example. If you think the Flail sucks because it doesn't do good damage, then you're missing the point of the melee system. If you want damage, you play gauntlets. The Flail is specifically designed as a resource option and an armor break option. People also get upset that the Flail doesn't give enough armor back. You only get 2 pieces per fodder kill. This goes up to 4 and 6 if you raise the resource slider to mid, high, and highest. And you get 4 pieces when hitting a heavy demon. When the Flail is fully upgraded, you'll get 4 points from fodder demons and 8 from heavies. It's a significant jump and really adds up if you're smart about your melee integration. We have to consider too that the Flail can be upgraded to give armor from every enemy killed in the AoE blast, increasing a zombie armor yield from just 2 to 10, 12, 14 in a single swing. And if it's fully upgraded, you can double that, 20 to 25 from a single swing. And you have 3 swings, which come back fast. And let's keep in mind that you get 1 free swing after every parry, so if you keep up your defense, you can keep farming armor with more swings. Sure, it's no Flame Belch where you could light up a group, blood punch, and now you're back at 150 armor, but the Flail is just one of 4 armor gain methods available. Since the Dark Ages is designed around creating builds, it's your choice to spec into something that grants more armor. If you want more than the Flail is giving you, then you can use the flame upgrade of the combat shotgun, which can be pushed further into armor gain by instantly lighting up fodder. A single shotgun blast can ignite half a dozen demons to be ready for a shield toss, and then you get armor from everyone. Combine this with use of the Flail and you're gonna be in a pretty good place. You're not getting as much armor as you would get from Meat Hook Super Shotgun and Flame Belch, but I think this game is going for a more thoughtful healing resource management system. And don't forget that we're also breaking enemy armor to get some for ourselves. Lines of shield guys can get us 30 armor points from a single shield toss. Break an armored heavy and get 10 points from it. We also have the Ground Fissure rune, which can be upgraded to give armor. Like how with a Flame Belch you could strategically position enemies to be burned by a single blast, with Ground Fissure you can move around to direct it into a line of enemies as the projectile comes your way, and you get armor from everyone. It's your choice how far you want to spec into armor gain. Even right before I finished this video, a conversation with speedrunner MMAfro led me to thinking hard about the triple shot of the combat shotgun. Does it need a buff? Is this weapon useless on a high level because it doesn't do the damage of the SSG? I don't know, maybe it depends on how you play. Against some demons, the time to kill is actually comparable to the SSG, like in the case of the Hell Knight. The combat shotgun is not an up-close weapon. It does the same damage at mid-range, so you can stay at a safer distance. And while in most cases you are certainly not getting the same time to kill as the SSG, the triple shot instantly applies burn to heavy demons, whereas the other dual tier upgrade requires 2 separate shots. This instant burn triple shot leads to a minimum of 10 armor points if you're using this weapon. Here I delim a Mancubus with 2 taps mid-range for a falter and 1 more for the kill, which gives me an execution for health and I've gained 16 armor. We just talked about how armor is harder to get in large quantities in this game compared to Doom Eternal, and when you have to hit 5 zombies with the Flail for 10 points, getting 10 points from a single combat shotgun blast is pretty good, especially when you remember that you can swap away from the combat shotgun to SSG or Impaler or something else after igniting the enemy, which is a faster and more damaging way to get armor from a heavy compared to multiple Flail hits. Maybe you could buff the damage a little, but you gotta be careful buffing something that is so easy to lean on for survival when you're a casual player. I can see how players who get really good at the game and don't need the combat shotgun for armor would eventually dismiss this weapon as useless, but I don't think that necessarily means the gun needs to change. It's a survival weapon. If you're really good at surviving, you won't need it. Meanwhile, many others will. I think that's okay. And I think we need to be careful about buffing certain weapons for a better place in high-level play, when that can lead to something becoming more abusable by new players to the point where they end up leaning on it way too much, therefore making a very unfun way to play a very successful way to play. Finally, there's the topic of shield runes, which I don't have a lot to say on because I think they're all strong and useful in their own ways. Ground Fissure for the long-range falter, armor breaking, and armor harvesting. A great rune to use for armor so you don't have to rely on Flail or combat shotgun. Daggers are a source of straight-up high damage that complements lower DPS weapons that are used for resources, setups, and status effects. The Shock rune is considered by many to be the best because, well, look at it. It's so good that it's the only rune that disables melee recharging from a projectile parry in an effort to balance it. And the auto turret is commonly looked at as the weakest, and it may be, but I think something that generates health can't also be highly damaging. Like the combat shotgun, it's a survival tool. It will complement you depending on your choice of weapons. It's also just cool as hell. If you're looking for good ways to incorporate runes you're not using, I recommend everyone check out Ragwell's video on 10 interesting builds for the Dark Ages. He did a lot of great work for this game before we lost him in that electrical fire. Well, that's about all I have to say on balance right now. It's a complex issue for a game with so many mechanics, so much opportunity for mastery and experimentation, and for a game that's setting out to be such a unique experience in the first-person shooter space. Thanks a lot for watching, hope you enjoyed the video, see you next time.